Pierre Rochard is an OG Bitcoin advocate and entrepreneur. He's now a product manager at Kraken and has played a key role in helping Kraken integrate the Lightning Network into their exchange. In our conversation, Pierre and I discussed exactly how Kraken's Lightning Network integration came to be, the trade-offs that exchanges face when thinking about whether or not to adopt the Lightning Network, and we got into lots of Lightning predictions. As always, this is a Lightning podcast, so the best way you can show your support if you're enjoying this content is by sending in sats, comments, questions over the Lightning Network. Last week, this show actually surpassed 500,000 sats sent in by listeners, so thank you to everyone who has supported to date. And just a quick shout out before we get into today's episode. Today's show is sponsored by Voltage, the industry standard and next generation provider for Lightning Network infrastructure. We will have more from Voltage later in the show in the lightning round. Pierre, thank you so much for joining me today. I'm really excited to talk about your role at Kraken and Kraken's new Lightning integration. There's been a lot of talk about it on Twitter. Before we get into that though, why don't we start with the first moment you recognized the importance of the Lightning Network? Do you remember when that was?
Yes, I do. Thanks for having me on, Kevin. I do remember when the Lightning white paper dropped, and I did not think it was important at the time. In my mind, I thought, hey, on-chain works just fine. We don't need a second layer. And this was back, I guess, 2014 or 2015. 2014. No, maybe 15. We'll have to have the fact checkers fact check that. But I was working at a Bitcoin payment processing company called BitPay at the time. And I should have been interested in Lightning, but when I started reading the white paper, it just came off as being too complicated. But maybe that just speaks to my lack of nuanced understanding at the time. And fast forward to 2018 and 2019. 2018, I believe there was a Chain Code Labs residency. So Chain Code Labs is a group out of New York that is dedicated to Bitcoin protocol development. And I had applied to their residency for on-chain, Bitcoin protocol development, and had been declined a couple of times. So when I saw that there was a Lightning one, I was like, well, you know what? I'm going to shoot my shot again. Let's see. Maybe this one will turn out different. And as part of the application process, they ask you, well, what project would you want to work on during the residency? What kind of feature or, hackathon type thing would you want to do? And my background is accounting, and so I wanted to create an Excel plugin that from a spreadsheet on your desktop, you could control your Lightning node. And so I started working on it before the residency, actually, because it just once I thought of the idea, I was like, okay, I've got to get cracking on this. But simultaneously, I also read through the bolts, the specification documents for Lightning, and kind of did a deeper dive into, the game theory of the punishment transaction and the time locks and all of this. And that's really when a light bulb went off that this is secure. This is backed by the Bitcoin blockchain, 100%. There's no shenanigans going on. And it's instant. And the economics of it make sense that this would have a much lower fee for small payments than doing an on-chain transaction. So, of course, there's also that moment when you send your first Lightning payment and it settles and it's instant and you're like, okay, this is even better than the first Bitcoin transaction I sent, right? Because I do remember it kind of bugging me that, you had to wait for so many confirmations, and you don't know when miners are going to find the next block and all of that jazz. So, um, yeah, that's really when Lightning cottoned to me.
And then how did you go from learning about Lightning to then deciding you wanted to work at Kraken? What was that process like?
Yeah, absolutely. So the at the residency, I realized that the challenge is to run LND on Windows, which is kind of my target platform because that's where all the business users are with Excel. Um, you had to go into the command line. And business users never go in the command line. They are graphical user interface maximalists, right? They want buttons, they want widgets. So um, I and even if you did go in the command line, you had to not only set up LND, but you also had to set up Bitcoin D, and you had to go into the configuration file and specify like the ZMQ ports. So expecting a business user to do that, it's just wildly unrealistic, and it's also annoying for somebody who is technical that you would have to go do that every time you want to set up a Lightning node on your desktop or laptop computer. So I started a project called the Node Launcher, and the Node Launcher is written in Python, and it bundles inside of it LND and Bitcoin D binaries, and it manages those processes. It manages the configuration file for both to keep them in sync, and on top of that, it has a graphical user interface that is cross-platform, thanks to the Qt framework. And that GUI is basically, if you are familiar with the system tray in Windows, kind of at the bottom right by the clock, or on Mac OS, the system tray is the toolbar at the top right, where you have kind of these utilities, these the technical people call them like daemons, uh, system daemons, and that seemed like a natural place for me to put your Lightning and Bitcoin node. So the node launcher bundles those two and puts it in the system tray and allows you to, just with a double click, you can join the Lightning network. And the other UX improvement that I was really happy with was that rather than asking the user to write down their seed phrase, their mnemonic, I don't know who decided on that word, mnemonic, it's too hard to say, that it would actually store it in your keychain. So both Mac OS and Windows have kind of an operating system keychain, and that, of course, you should be backing up your computer. And when you back up your computer, it also backs up the keychain. So it seemed like a really elegant solution and that's also where the computer keeps all of its private key material in general, because we often forget that computers already have private keys on them. They have all these certificates and password managers and all of this. So it's not like it's completely novel to Bitcoin and Lightning that you need to store a private key. So in any case, yes, I worked on the node launcher for quite a while, for I think almost a year of iterating on it, and was really happy with both my use of it, but also other people started using it and enjoyed using it. And then I started working on setting up my own Lightning routing node, because in the instructions for the node launcher, it was like, okay, you open it up. Now you need to open a channel. And I was like, well, who should I tell them to open a channel to? And there weren't like ways of recommending channel peers at the time, really. So I was like, all right, well, I'll just start my own routing node and I'll tell them to open a channel to my routing node. And did that. And then people kept asking for inbound liquidity, inbound capacity. And At first, I was just like manually going in the command line and providing them, opening a channel back to them. And then I created a Google Sheet, a Google form, where people could ask for inbound capacity. And then I created a script that would get the data from the Google Sheet and automatically open channels as people filled out the form. And then I built a full-blown website, a web application called lightningpowerusers.com, where people could go to the website and pay for inbound capacity. And so that way I didn't have to manually do it, and I wouldn't run out of sats because they would have to ration it by the market mechanism of having to pay for inbound liquidity. So then I enjoyed that, but I realized that it was the next iteration needed to be a marketplace, and I didn't have the technical chops to do it. The people who did have the technical chops to do it are Lightning Labs, and quite a bit after the lightningpowerusers.com, they came out with Pool, which is a marketplace for inbound liquidity, which is exactly kind of the vision I had, even though I didn't have the technical chops to execute on it. So kudos to them for doing that, and I'm a huge Pool fan now. And at the same time as I was working on all of this, I was organizing steak dinners in Manhattan, as Bitcoiners do, right? And that was a lot of fun. And at one of the steak dinners, I got to meet the head of the OTC desk at Kraken, Nelson Minier, and we got to talking about Bitcoin, of course, my open source projects, and he was very interested in seeing if I could join Kraken so that we could push forward some Bitcoin and Lightning related initiatives there. And at first I was a little bit apprehensive because I really like the open source world. I like that you can be autonomous, you can set your own priorities, you can build and ship in a very tight iterative loop. But I also recognize that Kraken did back then and has even more millions of clients. And if we could get this technology into their hands, that it really is game changing, and that we could serve a lot of people and scale up the Lightning Network very quickly. And so that's really what got me interested in joining Kraken and making Lightning accessible to a whole new audience.
Fascinating backstory. A lot of this predates my Lightning knowledge and experience, so I love the color there. So when you first decided to join Kraken, then was your mission there to kind of integrate Lightning into the exchange? Did you know that was going to be the avenue that you were going to pursue, or were you just excited about building something on Bitcoin and Lightning there?
So that was certainly my ambition personally. But any kind of large organization, you have to build alignment on a project like that and get buy-in from it. So even if I was gung-ho about it, there's a lot of competing priorities in a large organization like that. So that's always a challenge.
Right. Kraken's Lightning integration has been teased for a while. I remember looking back and seeing an article in CoinDesk, I believe December 2020, where you guys mentioned that you would integrate Lightning. And fast forward now 16 months, it's here. Talk to me about how the last 16 months have evolved, and like how much of it was dedicated to prioritizing other tasks at the exchange versus building a team and actually getting Lightning capability integrated into the exchange.
Yeah, absolutely. So first off, Kraken is one of the oldest exchanges around. So it's been around since 2011. And every time that there's a bull market that comes along, it puts tremendous stress on all parts of not only the system from an engineering perspective of having to scale that, but also the organization in terms of hiring. And that's really when you start seeing kind of all of the bottlenecks. In Kraken's case, there was a major effort to rewrite services from PHP into Rust. When we started on the Lightning project, that's also when the bull market started, which is bad timing, right? Because bear markets are for building, bull markets are for scaling. And so we were trying to do both at the same time. And that's really, challenging for in any context. But ultimately, I think that we're still very early, so I don't feel like we missed the train. I think that Lightning is going to continue to grow rapidly, so we're still very much at the beginning of the S curve, and that there's going to be big improvements ahead as well.
Yeah, I 100% agree. I think it's really cool to see exchanges stepping up and getting this done. But I also recognize that, 99% of people have no idea what the Lightning Network is still. A majority, I don't know if it's 99%, but a significant majority of Bitcoiners have never used the Lightning Network. So I agree, it is still very early. Was there a particular catalyst or turning point at which Kraken as a company decided we have to do this Lightning integration? Like this is an important thing to get done now?
So I definitely think that there were two things. One is that when OKCoin integrated Lightning, that got folks' attention. We always, are doing competitor analysis and seeing what competitors are building. And then also the El Salvador announcement was another catalyst where it's becoming more and more realistic that people are going to use Bitcoin as a medium of exchange. They're going to use Bitcoin for payments. And so those two were definitely interesting, news events that drove interest internally. But I think that, those were two big catalysts.
Do you think that this announcement of you guys integrating Lightning is also going to lead to this like follow-on effect of other exchanges taking that step? Because we've seen it with Bitcoin purchases. We've seen this play out at a corporate level where MicroStrategy buys a bunch and all of a sudden a few dozen public companies step up and say, hey, we're buying a bunch too. Do you think that process will follow a similar path in Lightning adoption?
I hope so, because at the end of the day, it's a network, and so network effects make our integration more valuable. The more other exchanges adopt it, the better it is for us and for them. So it's really a win-win. I know that there are, for example, Bitstamp has a Lightning node up, and they've done a partnership with Zebedee, but they haven't integrated deposits and withdrawals. So I'm hoping that they'll join us on the network. And of course, Coinbase. I think Coinbase should be on Lightning, and it's perhaps we need to engage them on social media to provide them constructive feedback about when Lightning. I think though, just like with Bitcoin, everyone gets on the Lightning network when they deserve to get on it, right?
Yeah, that's totally fair. Okay, so I want to dive into your specific Lightning integration. You launched a Lightning node that for a few days the community was wondering, is this the real deal? Is this Kraken's node, or is this some imposter account? Who's running this node? And it quickly grew from no capacity to now, just 2 weeks later, as of yesterday, it had 42 Bitcoin of public capacity. Who knows, maybe even higher this morning. And it's now one of the top 20 nodes on the network. And now you've confirmed this is your node. Can you talk to me about how you went through that process of setting up this node and how you think about how much public capacity you need to dedicate to it?
Yeah, absolutely. So, in terms of the how we went about setting it up, we did want to build up some kind of hype within the um, dedicated Lightning community, right? That we know is, really excited about um, exchanges joining the Lightning Network, but really, I mean, anyone joining the Lightning Network, right? When we look at things like PlebNet, it's really about the grassroots of everyone joining and helping everyone join, not just the exchanges. But we certainly wanted to start building up some hype even before our announcement or anything like that. And we also wanted to make sure that when we did launch, that we had enough network connectivity that our success rate would be really good, as good as we could get it. So that's where it is important to have a node that is well capitalized, that has enough channels, so that we can deliver a good experience on day zero. So that was kind of the thinking there in terms of getting the node up before the announcement. Secondly, with regards to the capacity, we generally want to have a good balance between inbound and outbound capacity. So that's a consideration. Now, how big the node gets from here will depend on how much people use it to deposit and withdraw. We don't want to put too much Bitcoin on it. Obviously, we want to keep as much Bitcoin as possible in cold storage. Kraken has an excellent security reputation, and we certainly want to maintain that. So we're keeping that risk as very low, because all things considered, we're at 58 Bitcoin. That's a big number, but at the same time, from a Kraken perspective, that's not a big number. For looking at kind of the wider exchange.
Right. Yeah, there's that interesting thing going on right now where you have more Bitcoin at Kraken than can possibly be absorbed by the Lightning Network today. It wouldn't make sense for you to put like a significant portion, from Kraken's perspective, a significant portion of your Bitcoin holdings on Lightning today. How big do you think some of these nodes will grow to over time? And I guess this has to do with public capacity more broadly. How much of this 21 million Bitcoin do you think will eventually find its way to the Lightning Network and will be used in this kind of back and forth kind of payment system?
That's a good question. So I hope that one day we can put channels in cold storage. And so that means that we would want all Bitcoin to be in 2of2 multisig, that or some kind of construct that would allow us to turn on the channel instantly. And so it would be just you pull it out of cold storage, and now you can instantly be routing or using that channel. Maybe that's unrealistic, science fiction, but I hope that we get there so that all 21 million Bitcoin can be, ready to go onto the Lightning Network whenever somebody wants to spend it, so that really on-chain transactions would only ever be about opening and closing channels, and it would never be about sending, a payment to somebody else. That's my long-term vision of it, that everything will be like that. But I think right now, realistically, Lightning is the checking account and on-chain is the savings account. So for long-term storage, you definitely don't want it on your Lightning node. You want it in cold storage. So This is also not new to exchanges and large service providers that you have a hot wallet and a cold wallet. And so conceptually, it's kind of the same for an exchange.
How do you get to the point where in this future idea of everyone being able to store or run Lightning from a cold wallet? How does that happen? I'd love to know kind of what the technical limitations are, because my technical knowledge of Lightning is not certainly not that great, and I was under the impression like the hot wallet was kind of required to have this. You have to be constantly online. You have to be ready to accept or send transactions. How does that work if it's a cold wallet?
Yes, so you would still have to be online to use the channel, but when you're not using the channel, that it could be on cold keys essentially, and that you turn those keys into hot keys when, for example, the price of Bitcoin is crashing and everybody is trying to make deposits and withdrawals, right? And the mempool is full, but because you had already broadcasted the channel to the Bitcoin blockchain, that you don't need to open a channel. Rather, you just need to transfer the keys from your cold storage to your hot Lightning wallet, and kind of import them essentially, without having to hit the chain. And then when that period of time goes by and you don't need that capacity anymore, that you would close the channel, send the Bitcoin back to cold storage, potentially as a new channel. Now, the challenge here is that you would have to get and this is the same as if your Lightning node goes offline for whatever reason. The challenge here is that you have to have peers that won't force close on you, and that are okay with having, what we could call a cold channel open with you that, is cryogenically frozen but can be revived when necessary.
Okay, so talk to me a little bit about how Kraken plans to use Lightning with your current node setup. I imagine a bunch of it is you want to prioritize exchange operations and you want to make sure that that's running smoothly, but you can also earn routing revenue. How do you think about what the Lightning node is going to be used for and prioritizing those over time?
Yes, absolutely. So just starting off with kind of the standard exchange operations, we're making a big push to appeal more to the retail consumer audience. And so we have a consumer app, and you can fund your Kraken account and buy Bitcoin using Apple Pay, Google Pay, SEPA, ACH, wire transfer, FPS in the UK. So in terms of just getting, fiat from your bank account to Kraken into Bitcoin, we're definitely making big improvements on that, making it as easy as possible. And then from there, being able to withdraw Bitcoin to whether it's your cold storage, right, your hardware wallet, definitely a great option. And for your checking account, for the walking around money on your mobile phone, being able to withdraw it to your Lightning wallet. And that's really, I think, particularly interesting because I do see Bitcoin and Lightning as becoming kind of how everybody makes payments every day. Whether you're buying coffee or buying chairs or whatever it is that you're spending your sats on. And then from the trader perspective, it's about how do I move this pristine, highly liquid collateral instantly from one exchange, one trading venue to another, whether it's for arbitrage or a margin call or any kind of other time-sensitive operation. And that's where it's really important to have other exchanges joining. So we're really excited that Bitfinex has been on the network for such a long time, and that we're going to be able to enable that use case for traders between Kraken and Bitfinex. And this is really key because Bitcoin's liquidity has been highly fragmented, over the years between different trading venues, and Lightning is a really great way to unify that liquidity so that because Bitcoin's volatility obviously is notorious, and when it's flash crashing, you don't have an hour to wait for confirmations for the on-chain. And not only that, but so many people are trying to move Bitcoin on-chain that the mempool quickly fills up during those times, and you get into a bidding war. So with Lightning, you'll be able to just sidestep that entirely and instantly move Bitcoin from Kraken to Bitfinex, or from Bitfinex to OKCoin, and from OKCoin to Kraken, and really make sure that everyone's getting the best price across all the trading venues. Thirdly, if you are running a Lightning routing node yourself, you can actually use Kraken to swap between on-chain and Lightning. So, for example, you can deposit to Kraken on-chain, withdraw via Lightning to get more capacity, or deposit via Lightning and withdraw on-chain. Now, Loop is a more decentralized way of doing that, but perhaps if you're already a Kraken client, doing it via the exchange is actually just as convenient, or perhaps even easier than using Loop for that use case. Now, with regards to routing fees, we absolutely want to provide network services for Lightning. So we want to connect the graph. We want to help route payments, and earning routing fees is a great way for us to receive the signal that we're doing a good job, right? If people are willing to pay us routing fees, that means that we're well connected and we're doing it. We're being reliable, and we're liquid, right? As a node. Secondly, we're really interested in using Pool, for example, and finding other ways of leasing out channels so that we can be helping the network in every way possible, and earning, obviously, leasing fees from that.
If you could estimate right now, I know it's probably too early to know for sure, but can you estimate like what percentage, if you look at all the income that your Lightning integration will generate over time, what percentage of that do you think is from the exchange, and what percentage of it is from routing fees on the network?
That's a great question. I imagine I would kind of go Pareto. I would say 80% from the exchange, because it is really like valuable that you can, let's look at it kind of from first principles of Bitcoin adoption. Every wave of Bitcoin adoption in general comes from people who have fiat in a bank account and want to convert that into Bitcoin in some way. Until NYDIG really, gets to all the banks and you can convert Bitcoin in your bank account, and your bank integrates Lightning. I don't know how many years that's going to take. It might take, a decade to get there. Obviously, things could accelerate very quickly. You have to use an exchange, and you have to use an exchange that has really good liquidity. And Kraken has excellent liquidity, and so it's a natural choice for folks. So not only is there people converting dollars into Bitcoin to use the Lightning integration, those people will then, refer and say, hey, they've got their rich uncle or whatever it is. Hey, Kraken's a great place to, for you to invest in Bitcoin, even though you're not even going to use Lightning, but it provides kind of an avenue there for growth as well. So I think that just based on people buying Bitcoin to use Lightning, and then kind of the halo effect of people recommending Kraken because it has excellent features, that we would see trading revenue go up there. So that said, I would be delighted if routing fees and channel leasing fees eclipse the trading fees, and that would be super awesome. So we'll see how that plays out.
Is there a fee on deposits and withdrawals right now for Lightning, or what does that structure look like compared to Bitcoin?
Yeah, absolutely. So one of yes, there is a fixed withdrawal fee for Lightning of 1,000 Sats, and on Bitcoin there's a fixed withdrawal fee currently of 2,000 Sats. Now we'd like to get to a place where both of those fees are real time and dynamic to reflect the exact network cost. We're not there yet, but that we've gotten lots of great feedback on that, and we do want to get there. On the deposits, the deposit fee is going to depend on your Lightning wallet and how well it's connected. So if you have a channel open directly with Kraken, your deposits are free, which is really great.
Now, okay, you guys are building this node on LND. Can you talk to me a bit about what that process was like in choosing LND? I know there was an article in CoinDesk. You were quoted talking about some of its documentation, full feature API, the user base, reliability. How do you rank those if you're an exchange, or maybe if you're thinking about other businesses that want to get on Lightning? How do you rank those as like must-have features?
Yeah, so that was Bitcoin Magazine, not CoinDesk.
Oh, okay.
Huge fan of Bitcoin Magazine. Looking forward to their conference next week. Internally, the engineering challenge is about how do we integrate this into our internal systems, and so we have a lot to worry about already in terms of how this is going to interface with the internal systems, and that means that we want to focus on that part of the integration and not really focus as much on kind of really the Lightning part, right? So that's where LND really shines, because LND is what I would call a batteries included solution, right? So it has all the pieces that you need bundled together into one package, so that you don't have to go find the right plugins or assemble your own node from a library like some of the other implementations. Because while those are great for use cases where you're going to need a lot of customization on the Lightning side, and that, if you're, for example, creating a non-custodial Lightning wallet, you probably need a lot of customization. But if you're an exchange and you're just trying to enable send and receive, right, as kind of your minimum viable product, then you don't need a lot of customization on the Lightning side. You just need to be able to query the data. And that's really where LND's API is excellent. They have a really full-featured API that just works out of the box. They also use a really great framework called gRPC. And gRPC allows you to have a lot of type safety, for the software engineers in our audience. So regardless of what programming language you're using, gRPC allows you to automatically generate kind of the client library for it. And then LND Lightning Labs has put together excellent documentation for that API. So that really makes it convenient for the engineers to be able to find what they're looking for and build something that's really reliable. The other part of it is that, There's always this argument about multiple implementations, and we hear this on Lightning, but also on Bitcoin. And it is the case that if you're trying to take as little risk as possible, you want to use the implementation that has the most users already, and that has been around for a long time, because that means that it's been hardened, right? It's got battle scars, and a lot of edge cases have been already explored and fixed, and so that also speaks to LND's strength.
And so, how do you think about the implementations on Lightning evolving over time? Is it all going to kind of move towards people using LND? Is that user base and that reliability now at a critical mass point where it just makes sense for everyone to adopt LND? Or do you think that it stays fragmented over time, or it maybe becomes more fragmented as some of the other implementations continue to innovate as well?
Yeah, that's a great question. So I do see the latter happening, that it's going to become more fragmented. I think that because different implementations are going to focus on different use cases and applications, that if you want to offer all of the features of Lightning, you're going to have to run multiple implementations. And so I think it would be great for Kraken and for any exchange or large service provider to run multiple implementations and to enable kind of all of the features of Lightning and not have to pick and choose between trade-offs of different implementations. It also allows for horizontal scaling. We already see that, for example, Bitfinex has 2 Lightning nodes on the network, or at least 2 to my knowledge. And so that makes a lot of sense. And that, ideally you would have one be LND, another Core Lightning, as C Lightning has just rebranded to, which is exciting, and LDK, async, and so on and so forth. So it would be great if the LND team kind of was... and this is kind of an unrealistic ask, but that that they can hire everyone and that they can build Bolt 12 and also build Taproot support and also etc. And there's just a lot of greenfield work to be done on Lightning, and it makes sense that different teams are going to gravitate towards different parts of kind of the stack that needs to be built out. And then from a user perspective, it's really that makes it challenging that we're going to have to run multiple implementations if we want to provide all the things. But I think that we just have to accept reality.
Yeah, that's fair. Now, in the case of Bitfinex, you said they have 2 nodes right now. Are those different implementations today, or are those the same?
I don't know. I think that they are both LND, but I'm not sure.
Okay, so would there be what would the use case be for running multiple nodes on the same implementation? What's the rationale there versus just having one node on each implementation?
So the rationale would be that you're just looking for horizontal scaling so that you can have more channels and load balance between the same implementation while not having to write new code because each implementation has a different API. And so you would have to write more code to each API if you were using different implementations for load balancing. If you use the same implementation, then you can reuse the same code and just spin up a new server.
But why not just have one node then?
Because eventually, if you've got, I don't know, thousands and thousands of channels on one server, then you start running out of CPU. You might start running out of RAM. Now, granted, there are some pretty beefy servers out there that, have multiple CPUs, dozens of cores, hundreds of gigabytes of RAM. So perhaps, there's optimizations that can be made there. The other reason that you would want to have several nodes is that you want to have them perhaps in different environments so that you have redundancy. So if, for example, one of your data centers gets knocked offline because there's a storm, then your other data center is still online and you're still be able to provide Lightning deposits and withdrawals. So redundancy is key. The other that I think might become increasingly important is that geography. So the further your server is from the client, the higher the latency is because of the data has to go such a long distance. So if you have clients that are making payments in Australia, you probably want to put your server or your Lightning node in Australia so that the clients don't have to communicate with Western Europe or the United States. So I think that geolocation will become increasingly important as we try to kind of shave off fractions of a second on Lightning payments.
Right. Okay, that makes sense. So geolocation and redundancy is kind of the main selling points there. Now let's transition to other exchanges integrating Lightning. I think for a number of years now, many in the Lightning community have kind of expressed frustration with exchanges opting for, listing the next coin or, dozens of coins over implementing Lightning. And I get it. I see the use case, the business use case. It makes sense to optimize for profits. And if that's the case, that some new token is going to offer more profits, I get the value in doing that. Obviously, you guys now see a business use case and a business opportunity to integrate Lightning, otherwise you wouldn't have done it. How do you think about other exchanges prioritizing Lightning now? Do you think it starts to move up on their priority list over listing other coins? Do you think that Lightning will provide more revenue and more income than many of the other coins that are being listed now?
Yeah, so this I think is a pretty nuanced question because on the profit part, it's very hard to measure two things. One, how much more Bitcoin volume do we get from integrating Lightning? Because Bitcoin volume, just like the price, is highly volatile. So you wouldn't be able to measure, okay, we implemented Lightning, we got 5% more Bitcoin volume, and that represents X, dollars of profit. Whereas when you list a new token, it's very clear, okay, here's the new volume we have on this token, here's the revenue that's directly attributable to listing it. The second thing that's really hard to measure is when you list a new token, how much of that revenue is actual net new revenue and how much of it is cannibalizing revenue from all of the other tokens you already have listed. How much of it is just fragmenting liquidity from other order books and it's just automated market makers, bots that would have been trading on other pairs and now they're trading on this pair. And so you don't know if a new listing is just taking all of its revenue from existing listings or if it represents new clients signing up, funding their account, and then trading that token, right? And so it's really hard to do that data analysis both on increasing Bitcoin volume and also on where is the volume of a new listing coming from. And so that's where, we have to have some humility from a quantitative perspective of saying, hey, okay, we're not going to be able to nail down specific numbers here, but let's look at it qualitatively. Or let's look at proxy metrics, like on a new listing, how many deposits and withdrawals do we have? let's correlate that to how many deposits and withdrawals we are getting on Lightning, and let's extrapolate that to how much net new volume is coming in from Lightning into the trading. So, there's things like that you can do, but I'm a fan of looking at it just from first principles, right? That traders care about speed. What we can measure is that on-chain takes an hour, Lightning is instant, right? We can measure that. That's quantitative, We can measure the difference in cost between an on-chain transaction fee and a Lightning routing fee, especially if they have a channel directly open to us, right? And in both those cases, we're talking about order of magnitude improvement. So it just seems entirely uncontroversial that it should be a priority to integrate Lightning from a quantitative perspective of looking at those two metrics, and that really revenue and profit are downstream of first principles, right? That we should focus on the mission, and we hear competitors talking about how they're mission focused. I really think Kraken is the most mission focused exchange out there. And if we focus on the mission, the revenue and the profits will take care of themselves. And that's kind of how I would approach it.
And so if you were going to another exchange and talking to them, trying to convince them to set up on Lightning as well, do you think that the primary use case, do you think that main reason would just be to make Bitcoin instant withdrawals and deposits, that traders can now act with speed? Do you think that would be kind of the main selling point?
Absolutely, because traders care more about speed than they even care about fees. Because the Bitcoin markets, the crypto markets move so fast. And even in markets that have less volatility, like, for example, equities, traders care about speed, right? High frequency trading. It's been in the news. They care about milliseconds. They care about nanoseconds. And so not only do they care about that within kind of the order book, but they also care about that in terms of moving the money and getting to instant settlement. So, you might argue that, oh, well, look, there's other blockchains that are fast, right? That might even claim to be instant. I would call that bluff, right? I'd call that marketing, because really the only way you can be instant is if your payment is literally peer-to-peer, right? That your payment is only going from your server to your counterparty server without going through the network, without going through the blockchain. The moment you have to globally broadcast the transaction, you're adding latency. And so really, Lightning is not only faster than any of the other blockchains, it's impossible to be faster than Lightning. So let's say, for example, if a trader co-located their Lightning node with Kraken's Lightning node, now that's not possible today, but we're just saying, hypothetically, if you were in the same data center directly connected with a fiber optic cable, there's no way that you could have anything faster, because these other blockchains, they say, oh no, actually you need to go through the network of all of the nodes, and that's just not going to be faster than a direct peer-to-peer connection, which is what Lightning enables.
That's really fascinating. That you can make it because it's peer-to-peer, and you're not touching a blockchain. I didn't quite grasp that until you mentioned it that way. That it can just be that there's nothing that can possibly compete if it's built on a globally updating blockchain and public announcements. Okay, I want to get into a couple predictions here. If you had to pick one exchange that's going to be next to adopt Lightning, who's your name?
I think Bitstamp, because they have, signaled support and interest in Lightning, as well. And so I hope that they join. Yeah.
Who, if you had to pick one individual or company or maybe even country, who is operating the biggest Lightning node in the world in the year 2025?
Yeah, I mean, Kraken would be my first guess, or MicroStrategy.
Really? Do you think they get on Lightning and kind of build out maybe a Lightning service provider or some kind of software product tied to Lightning?
I hope so. I think that they could do really well doing that, and I think the challenge there is that they're a public company and there's you know Sarbanes-Oxley, IT controls, all of this, but as I think we'll see more and more Lightning service providers as public companies, and with MicroStrategy's treasury that they want to earn a yield on and put to useful work, it seems natural that they would run a Lightning node.
Do you think we'll see other businesses outside of the Bitcoin ecosystem? I'm specifically thinking of like payment processors like Visa and MasterCard. Do you think they will jump into Lightning as well, or is that kind of too far off the deep end for them?
Yeah, great question. So I think that they're like Kodak or Blockbuster. We might see them try some things, but I think that they're so backwards in their thinking that they're like, it seems like they're interested in stable coins, which I think is a dead end. I think that the future is Sats the standard. I think people are going to be using real Bitcoin on Lightning to make payments, not stable coins. And so they're kind of in a trap of their mental model. There are others like obviously Jack Dorsey and Square that could really bring Lightning to point of sale and cut out Visa and MasterCard. And so it might be too late already for Visa and MasterCard. We'll see.
And when you think about use cases on the Lightning Network in general, not just in the context of Kraken, what do you think will be the most impactful use case? Is this going to be remittances? Is it going to be point of sale? Is it going to be micropayments, things that we can't do on the fiat system? What do you look at and think that's going to be the biggest market for Lightning?
Yeah, that's a good question. So I guess I just think that all payments are going to be on Lightning. So I don't really break it up into specific areas like that. But ultimately, in order for a business to adopt Lightning as kind of its method of payment, I really think that the owner of the business has to be a Bitcoiner, right? That they want to hold Bitcoin, they want to acquire Bitcoin, and that's why they're doing it. Not because they're going to like go convert it into fiat or convert all of it into fiat. Maybe they only convert part of it just to pay those suppliers and the employees who don't want to receive Bitcoin. So I think that the number of business owners who want to hold Bitcoin is going to increase, especially with inflation. So I think that with the uptick in global inflation, that we're really going to see an uptick in adoption of Bitcoin as a method of payment.
Do you think we're at the point now where if inflation runs really hot, we have the infrastructure and the tooling and the ability for everyone to get on board easily? Or do you think we still need to do work to get to the point where it's easy for that critical mass to adopt Lightning?
There's always room for improvement, but I think we could onboard the world right now. So it wouldn't be ideal because I think that if we onboarded the world right now, A lot of them would be onboarded onto custodial solutions. With every day that goes by, I think we can onboard more people onto non-custodial solutions. But even if we did onboard the world today and a lot of them were on custodial solutions, I think they would end up gravitating towards non-custodial anyway over time, because there are significant advantages to non-custodial. I mean, obviously, freedom.
Yeah. I have a question about advice for other businesses.
Yes.
Now that you've gone through the process of integrating Lightning, do you have any pieces of like tactical advice that you would give to another business thinking about approaching this problem and whether or not they should integrate Lightning?
I think that you've really got to at first kind of focus on education, so that people understand how Lightning works, why it is differentiated from on-chain, and why, the difference between settling a transaction in 3 days and settling a transaction in 1 hour and settling it instantly, those are almost like, it sounds like going from an hour to instant is not as big of a deal as going from 3 days to 1 hour, but it's actually a much bigger deal. And so, it's the difference between standing around in the coffee shop for an hour, waiting for your transaction to settle, and having a better experience than just using a credit card, right? So I think that really getting into the nuances of the user experience and having kind of clarity on that across stakeholders and having really strong education on that is the place to start, so that everyone's really excited about building that.
Interesting. Are there any particular regions around the world where you think Lightning adoption will outpace the global average? Like, I guess at Kraken, you must have visibility into a lot of different regions that people are using the exchange for. And it might be too early to tell how they're using Lightning in different regions, but would love to know if you think that there are particular countries, El Salvador might come to mind, but other countries as well, where Lightning adoption will continue to outpace the global average.
Yeah, great question. So Kraken has a really strong presence in Europe. And the reason is that, not only do we have excellent client service and security, and we've been around for so long, we also have really great fiat rails there with SEPA. And with SEPA, that means that you can instantly move euros. And it's funny because, I'm talking about how awesome Lightning is because it's instant. SEPA, the fiat rail is instant as well. But I think that's great because that means that you can instantly move up to 100,000 euros from your bank account to Kraken, convert it into Bitcoin instantly, obviously, put in a market buy, FOMO, and then instantly transfer it out via Lightning. And so that means that, in a matter of seconds, you can go from euros in your bank account to Bitcoin in your Lightning wallet. And so that is going to continue to accelerate adoption. And I also see a lot of adoption of Lightning in Europe because folks are concerned about the stability of the euro. The euro is a political project that's, very different from what we experience here in the U.S. with the U.S. dollar. In the U.S. dollar has been around forever, and so it's very Lindy. The euro has only been around for a couple of decades, and I remember, when I went to France and used French francs, and so I think that the euro is not as Lindy and is on shaky ground, and could quickly find itself get replaced because it doesn't have the brand value that the dollar has, even as the global reserve currency. So that's kind of where I think that I'm hoping that Europe gets onto the Bitcoin standard as quickly as possible from the grassroots, right? From individuals, not from governments, but from people getting on the Bitcoin standard. And yeah, I do agree as well that El Salvador and Latin America are, obviously making big moves there. And I hope that Kraken can help out there. So if you're in one of those countries, odds are you can do a wire transfer to Kraken and get, some sats onto your Lightning wallet and be able to integrate into the economy there.
Do you think future Bitcoin adoption happens through the lens of on-chain Bitcoin first or Lightning first?
Lightning first. I think that Lightning's gonna be the default, within a matter of years, not decades. And today on the Kraken integration, we default to on-chain because that's what people are most familiar with. Eventually, we're gonna unify it so that you don't have to choose between Lightning and Bitcoin on-chain. Instead, a smart decision is made based on, the capabilities of your wallet.
Right. And then I guess you could also dynamically adjust based on fees, whether or not, fees on the main chain are higher or lower, right?
Right.
Interesting. Do you have any favorite Lightning applications that you've used?
Oh, great question. So on mobile, I use Phoenix. That's been kind of my. Now, in terms of what I spend sats on, my favorite thing to spend sats on is beef steaks. Our good friend Away Slice hosts beef steaks, and you usually buy your ticket with BTC Pay Server or OpenNode. Now he'll call me out on this. He gives me free tickets, so I don't get to use the integration as often as I'd like. But very grateful for that, always. But you don't need to do that, man. I'm always happy to use Lightning and to send those payments. One of the first services I used Lightning with. Well, it's not a service. Was the Lightning Torch. And sending the Lightning Torch around. So I hope that we bring that back at some point soon. That was a really fun moment in Bitcoin history and Lightning history.
Do you think Lightning adoption primarily happens through spending Bitcoin on Lightning or earning Bitcoin on Lightning?
Well, you can't have one without the other. So somebody's always earning, someone's always spending. I think that I think that we've really got to close the loop on the circular economy, and that is slowly happening. And I'm hoping that it doesn't just continue to slowly happen. I hope that there is a tipping point where it accelerates. And if we look at like the Lightning Network graph, there was an acceleration last year, right? There was like a point where we were, going parabolic. So I hope that, and then it kind of slowed down a little bit. And I hope that Kraken joining the Lightning Network means that we can kick off another parabolic rise in Lightning Network adoption, and really start closing the circular economy loop.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, one thing I've started to notice is that I'm starting to see like funnels forming where fiat money can come into Lightning and through an exchange or a provider or something, and can be blasted out to a bunch of users that can earn it. So that was more what I was thinking around earning versus spending, because there has to be a one-to-one, dollar volume. They have to balance out, but it could be that a lot of people are earning for one spend, or like one chunk of capital is moving online from fiat or from Bitcoin and then gets blasted out.
Yeah, absolutely. I agree. And now that I think about it, I'm thinking back to your question about where I see adoption of Lightning happening, or what I'm most excited about. There is the sale of digital goods and services, right? Because um, if you don't have to worry about physical delivery, so until Amazon adopts Lightning, I think that's a long shot. But um, if you're just talking about digital delivery of goods and services, then it just makes a ton of sense that digital cash, electronic cash, would be how you pay for that, because you don't need a physical address, you don't need a billing address, you don't need an identity, right? And that's where I think that the games, the video games, kind of use case is really interesting. Um, and I think it's exciting that Zebedee and Thunder Games are working on that. Um, I do need to get back on Counter Strike. I haven't played Counter Strike in decades, so need to brush up on that to try it out. But I also want to see some more real world games. So, for example, I recently went go karting for the first time in a long time with my wife for our anniversary, and it was a lot of fun. And I want to do a go karting tournament here in Austin, and have the buy-in be over Lightning. So to participate, you've got to buy in, and then the rewards will be over Lightning as well. So whoever gets first, second, and third will pay out in Lightning. And then also have the betting, right? We want to have real-time betting with DLCs going on. Ideally Lightning DLCs, although that might take a little bit longer. But that's something that I was a shower thought I was having, of how much fun it would be to do that.
Yeah, you can do everything on Lightning, eh?
Yeah.
It's just like when you start to think about DLCs and what they can enable, and then when you start to think about like how much of the global economy is really just payments back and forth in some form or another, I start to wonder about what cannot be done on Lightning. Like, the saying, like, if it can be built on Bitcoin, it will be built on Bitcoin. What do you think can't be built on Bitcoin? And what, over time, like, how much of payments move to Bitcoin?
Yeah, I mean, I think that in terms of money and payments, everything can be built on Lightning. Some things do require trust, and so I'm not. I don't know about tokenization, about stocks and bonds and all of that, whether that is really useful to have on Lightning, but you will want to buy stocks using Lightning, and trade Sats for stocks, or stocks for Sats, whatever the flow is, and that would leverage Lightning. But I don't know that there's tremendous value in representing stocks on the Lightning Network, or on a blockchain, versus, because the issuer is centralized. And so if the issuer is centralized, then it makes sense to me that they're the ones maintaining the ledger, and the best ledger technology in the world, if you are centralized, is a SQL database, not a blockchain. So kind of bearish on that. Yeah.
Yeah, fair enough. Okay, one final question for you. I want to hear maybe a controversial prediction, or something that you think is not yet recognized by the Lightning community. Is there anything that you see kind of forming on the horizon, you don't think there's enough attention on, but you think for sure that's going to happen, or there's definitely going to be a trend around something, and it hasn't quite been recognized yet?
Yeah. I think the controversial thing is that Lightning might not always be channel based, and it certainly won't always be, two peers in one channel. That we'll have multi-party channels. We'll have there's coin pool that I'm really excited about, and so the channel graph that we have today might just be an artifact of where we are in terms of the technology, and it's not based on any kind of fundamentals that are immutable, right? So I'm sorry, folks who are curating their channels and hoping to keep them open for years. That might not be realistic, but I'm open to being completely wrong on this. And also that having a channel open for years is great, but the reality is that the technology for channels is going to improve as well. So you're going to want to upgrade your channel to Taproot. I've heard that there might be ways to do that without closing the channel. So that would be cool. But, if you want to turn that multi-sig from a 2 of 2, old school multi-sig into a mu-sig to, you're going to have to close the channel and reopen it. So that's kind of my Debbie Downer bummer announcement for Lightning enthusiasts, is that the technology is going to continue to improve, and in ways that might make the network today very different, or the network of tomorrow very different from the one of today.
Interesting. I always like hearing different points of view on these topics. How would Lightning work if it's not channel based?
Basically you join these giant pools, and so you can think of it like, what if we had a channel that had 1,000 peers in it? And that's radically different from what we have today, and that to join and leave the channel, that it doesn't have to be closed, and so it can just continue to be open. I'm hand waving all the details here because I'm not a cryptography expert, but that's kind of where I see this heading.
Fair enough. I appreciate the perspective and all the knowledge you've dropped on this episode. This was fascinating, and I learned so much. So thank you for the time. Real quick before we go, where can people go to learn more about you and the work you're doing?
Yeah, absolutely. Follow me on Twitter at Pierre_Rochard. And feel free to DM me. My DMs are open. I'm also in the Lightning Telegram channels, but I don't know that Telegram's particularly secure. It certainly feels, I don't know, it's probably just as secure as Twitter, but yeah. Or find the Kraken node on the graph and open up a channel.
Awesome. I will link the Kraken node to the description of this episode, and hopefully we can do this again sometime soon. Thanks again for the time.
Thanks for having me on, Kevin. Cheers.
Welcome to the Lightning Round presented by Voltage, the industry standard for Lightning Network infrastructure. Creating layer 2 applications and services on Bitcoin starts with Voltage, where you can spin up nodes, get access to liquidity, optimize your node, and much more. Voltage is leading the way as the next generation platform for Lightning, and if you want to check them out, you can get a free trial at voltage.cloud. Lightning round, here we go. In the last 7 days, you guys sent in 8,148 sats. That comes in from 10 different supporters, as well as 3 messages, and a little bit of a dip in the sat support, which is to be expected because the last time I released an episode was, I believe, 8 days ago. So makes sense. I'll have a lot more content coming up soon. And as always, excited to read all your guys' messages. Before we get into the messages though, from the last few episodes, I have to share the results of a contest that Fountain put on. If you recall, a few episodes ago, I mentioned Fountain was giving away 1,000 sats to any new listener on Fountain who played an episode of the Kevin Rooke Show in the month of March. That is complete. New listeners should have received 1,000 sats by now. Fountain also is giving away, or decided to give away 50,000 sats to a random listener in the month of March for the Kevin Rooke Show. And I made a decision that I announced a couple episodes ago that the best comment would get the 50,000 sats. So congratulations to @Y, that's username @Y on Fountain, for sending in all the comments and questions you've sent in over the month of March. Too many to count, actually. There must have been a dozen of them. So thank you for sending in the great comments, questions. Keep it up and enjoy the 50,000 sats. Now, in the last week or two, I've got a few messages I got to catch up on here. Let's go back to Peter, who said, "I've never in my life heard a more dialed in and intelligent politician. Wow, good luck on 500K. That was a message Peter sent in on episode 30 with Brian Solston. And the 500K, Peter, we passed it. Thank you for sending in sats. Just passed it in the last week, so that means you guys have sent in over 500,000 sats of support to this show in the last few months. I believe I started the show about 6 months ago, but most of those sats have come in the last 3 months. So we're almost at 500K in the first quarter of 2022. Next comment comes in from BTC Rich. Says, love hearing about how WebLN versus LNURL is complementary. First time I had heard of WebLN. Keep up the good work. And that's in response to episode 28 with Michael Booman and Moritz Kaminsky on Albi. Actually, I've started receiving some comments and sats on my Albi account. I put my Albi username in every description on YouTube videos and on podcasts, and specifically on my website as well. And I believe I've earned over 2,000 sats from a dozen or so people or a dozen or so transactions that people have sent in. So Albi's doing some pretty cool stuff. I'm going to keep an eye on the Albi account and see if people continue to send in sats through Albi as well as Fountain. We have a few test transactions from Mary Oscar. I know he's always working on new stuff, so who knows what the next release for Fountain will look like. We have HK1111 who sends in a message that says "Go" in response to Anders Helseth on the State of the Lightning Network. So there you go. Thank you for the 98 sats, HK1111. And those are all the messages you guys sent in the last 10 or 15 days when I was kind of offline for a couple days. Really excited for you guys to send in feedback on this episode. I know this Kraken announcement was a really big shift in people's understanding of the Lightning Network, and I think this is going to lead to a lot of other exchanges following suit and then further adoption from users. So can't wait to hear your thoughts on this week's episode, and we'll see you soon.